Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Our next speaker is a data generalist, a strategist, and a community builder with a passion for open source. Today, our speaker will be giving us a talk on the topic Designing Data Toolkit, Your Open Source Atlas. Hi, everyone. Let's give a warm welcome to Sayantika Banig. Thank you.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Different time zones that we are joining here today. Super excited to be part of the PyLadies Con 2024 and introduce one of my favorite topics and the topic that I think very deeply and on a regular basis is how design, open source as a landscape, is influencing the data paradigm. And today we will be touching upon very interesting design concepts, the age of AI, and how all these things come together with a framework that I designed. I am Sayantika Banik, call me Saya, pronounced as she, her. I'm an independent data consultant and an advisor. I work with small and medium sized enterprises, helping them understand where their bottlenecks reside and how, with open source as a medium, those could be remediated. I also closely work with different communities at PSF, Our Ladies, Data Visualization Society, and mentor at various different associations and organizations. More about me is on my website. It's scientificabanning.com. Feel free to take a look. Any questions, happy to answer. Today's agenda. As I say that a good meal starts with knowing your ingredients well. Ingredients well in the sense the quantity, how to cook them, what temperatures works best, what are the ingredients that the open source and design brings in and gives us in our hand, so we can carry on these interesting amalgam, combining these two very broad and amazing concepts. Design and more, open source as a medium, data journey is a framework that I've designed to combine all the learnings together, and we will be seeing a very quick demo. And then finally, we have the takeaways, gathering ingredients, the favorite and the foremost. So this is a short video, and I would love that every one of us just take a quick and deeper look on what's exactly happening here. So we see we have a container, we have a cardboard box where we are assembling the ingredients that are required for building our next meal. The interesting part is that we are carefully handpicking the right quantity and also the right set of ingredients together. What I mean by having a quantitative and a qualitative assessment here is when I would require, say, about 200 gigabytes instead of like a 500 gigabyte storage requirement, that small decision influences your time complexity a lot. So here we have half a cabbage. We wouldn't be requiring the whole. And also that half, the rest of the half of the cabbage could be also shared as a shared resource. So what I'm trying to communicate is having this small assessment about both qualitative and quantitative makes a huge difference. And today we are going to learn more about it and how, as data practitioners, we could leverage the concepts better. Diving into ocean of tools, I love to say that the ocean is growing, and also at the same time it's becoming increasingly hard to navigate. How deep should we go to find the right set of tools? Sometimes the right set of tools are just there. We don't have to dive at all, it's on the surface. Sometimes we do need to dive. So what decisions influence those tiny steps that we want to take? This is honestly the 2021 landscape. about the data tooling. It's huge. I didn't even try for the 2024 because I know I if I see that I would be visually very overwhelmed, and this list keeps growing. So whenever we start our journey to understand that we want to build a pipeline A that has to be scalable, runs 24/7, is up, say, about 70 to 80%, and the downtime could be like 20%. These are the characteristics we define, and then we see which are the tools that closely manifests or closely relates to our needs. Dig a little deeper, like what and how these small minuscule steps lead to a better long term pipeline discovery. Toolkit and design. So these are the buzzwords we all see, but honestly, these are one of few of the most important uh, procedures while cooking your ingredients. For pipelines, probably we would like to have it should be accessible, it should be maintainable. I also want my goals to fit my budget, and the budget to fit my goals, either ways, which is very interesting debate I was having with one of my friends. Which way should we go? Then the reproducible aspect just adds another amazing layer on top. Like now it's reproducible, which essentially means that you have developed something which now acts as the starter kit for the next. I don't need to dig inside and look for all the commands. Rather, I have abstraction built on top where it just say I click of a button or just click of one single command. I can run, I can execute the idea and build it through it. And less is okay. We need simplicity. We need something which adheres to our needs and goals. This is how a design mental model feels like. And I came up with this simple idea that when we think about design is essentially a mental model which begins with asking those hard questions. Hard questions are the question which probably we don't want to ask at the first go, or is organizationally tension causing, or brings in a little bit of friction. At the end of the day, whatever solution we are building, it's all about people. We are building processes, but processes are derived from people, and people, we have to ask questions, and those questions are often the hard ones. We'll dig into the left shift thinking and how we should traverse from goal to technology and not vice versa. Because imagine, um, goals goals are the broader dreams and aspects, while technology are fixed sort of thing until unless those go together hand in hand. But here the assumption is technologies are static, while goals are more malleable and is more visionary. And when that happens, we need to focus on something which is more expanding and then fit the static thinking. And this is one of the most common pitfalls all the data practitioners, or even of course me, have fallen into. Like implementation is so rapid, like I have to implement, and then didn't take into account the future expansions or subtractions or changing of the goals, any of those scenarios into account. And that is where the left shift design thinking comes into play. And as in many, it's hard to implement when we have huge amount of expertise, because now we are thinking from the level of expertise and not from the level of like people or user perspective. The idea is we are gonna pay a huge attention to the quality of planning and designing, which basically means going to that whiteboard, having the team in house assess what are the current goals, how do we plan it, what are the bottlenecks, how that manages and manifests to the business goals, and then and only then the development begins. The testing, analyzing, looping the feedback in are the future steps, which happens like a free fall. Once you can beat the positive buoyancy of having a design in the age of AI. So when we talk about design and currently the entire landscape is shifting. AI has been penetrating into our day-to-day lives, tech or otherwise. It's there. AI has been there in our chatbots, in the way we interact our daily task, in the way I book my flight tickets nowadays. So it how designing in the age of AI feels like. This is a very interesting open source collection of design principles. Do take a look when the slides get to you. But two of the main concepts that I loved are building long term relationship with products and services without emotional dependency. So while designing, we have to be very careful about how exactly the user workflow interacts. Are we creating any dependency which could not be removed in the future use case if at all we want to? A good design is just like a walk in the park. It feels good. It removes complexity from the life. One of the incremental ways of thinking about left shift design, that the design doesn't have to be done all at once, but in the incremental phase where the design is implemented, say in the ratio of 80, but the implementation, like the actual coding or the execution, is done at a slower pace, like say 20. So once we have the from the pile of 100, if we take that 80 of the design, if we do it well, and then we have now the 20 of design, and again we do the ratio of 80/20 in that 20, and then continue to do it until we figure out a sweet spot where the design and the implementation go hand in hand. One framework powered by open source. The idea is how open source comes to into the scenario. It binds all this concept together in a very natural format. You don't have to force it. Open source have already have the resilience built inside it, have already these principles at its core, and think open source as a medium, or like that glue, or that thread that connects all these interesting concepts together and keeps it tight. So needs to implementation framework that I came few few months back, where I was talking to a friend and like how do we actually manifest the goals from our needs and then fill it to our gaps. And this essentially means we go back and forth from bottlenecks to our goals. We do it again and again until we reach at a stage where we are very much knowing what our bottlenecks feel like and what our goals look like. And then we choose the technology, we build the implementation pipeline, we learn and test at the same level, but derive the business value, which doesn't always have to be done at the goal level, because goals are also malleable in nature. Not all needs translate to goals, and not all goals translate to business values. And that's where the friction happens. So when business value is driven at the end, now these are fed to the goals. Now the goals are more structured for the next round. So implementing this pipeline again and again in the organizational state helps building a very sound systems and procedures. Quick walkthrough through Data Journey. Data Journey came into light about 2 years ago when I was very deeply thinking about these concepts, and I was very much lost. That how can I bring all these together? And Data Journey came as like a way and a medium for me to communicate my thoughts. This data journey, it's all on GitHub. and we'll see a quick demos before this happens. So data journey here we have it's a framework developed on the Python framework, which itself builds a lot of design principles with respect to modularity. Now, all of my important pipelines and procedures are part of the framework itself. A lot of actions running in the background, which does all the housekeeping for the project on a daily basis. We also collect stats for Git data journey every single day, and this is how it feels like. Views, the clones, the folks, the how many visitors did I have, what's the cumulative stats looking like. Quick demo for data journey. Let's see if this works. So I start with listing all the tasks. The documentation is pretty in depth, so when you can look deeper into that, you'll see what all it comprised. Currently, I'm just going to run one of the models, which essentially takes the time series data of stocks and feeds it to the pipeline with a pre-default prompts to get a basic analysis about how it's doing. So Pixie run the model, give me an output. Sweet. So I'm just gonna try to paste it for us so that we can see what it is about. And so yeah, the output I prompt is an HTML, so which is accessible in nature. Interesting. So it gives me the summary of the data set. It talks to me for an analysis like what it is, the value, the median, and bits and pieces of significance of risk, volatility in price points. So that's just one example about how data journey takes a data set, which is all fed via intake, and takes it, massages it, feeds it into the pipeline, and able to give you an output. There are multiple other tasks that could be run here, and each runs a pipeline or an application, checks for the pre-commits, checks for your tokens, and the idea over here is, though every of these components are almost together, but they are also like acting independently and easily debug individual components if required. So the takeaways at the end of the day is thinking design first, and then going from design to finding your right medium, which is in this case open source, gelling these tools together, and then finding the right set of tools which makes sense. And finally, data is all about evolving. It's all about not exactly finding the right or the perfect thing, but finding the best with all the resources that you have, and thinking from the sense of people and not processes. So people, user first, design first, open source as a medium, and finally stitching it all together. And I hope you like the session today, and any questions I would love to take it on the chat, or feel free to also drop me a message. All my details are on the website. You could reach me on LinkedIn or any other platform for that matter, and I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much.
Hey there! We would like to extend our gratitude to our speaker, Sayantika Banik, for sharing that very thought inspiring session with us on the topic Designing Data Toolkit, your open source atlas. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the sessions. Bye.